everyone, here we have some nice chopping boards from IKEA, lovely bamboo, £9 each as far as I remember. We bought 12, I actually end up using only 10 of these. The first thing I'll need to do is basically trim off one edge to give me a reference edge due to the fact that these are sloped, but that's basically it, on with the show. Okay, step number one, trim off the one edge on all of the boards and we'll go from there. Next step is to cut some boards to width. These will be for the tops, bottoms and sides of the cabinets. For each cabinet I need 2 boards for the sides and 1 board for the top and bottom. Okay, that's all the boards cut to width now. I'm going to be using miter joints for the corners of this cabinet, so I've made myself a nice little slide up from a table saw, and I'm going to take this nice and slowly so that I get as little tear out as possible, because all these, when you're doing a miter, you want it absolutely perfect. So on we go, just taking it nice and slow here. Yeah, so I got a nice clean cut on that one. The very first one I did was a wee tiny bit of tear out on the edge, but that'll stand up no problem at all. If I can actually hold them together and get it in camera shot properly. So it looks like quite a good join. I'll only be able to tell though once I actually put them together properly. Anyway, on to the next step. And the first mistake, I lined up on the wrong mark on my sled. Only noticed a few seconds into the cut, so I've now got this bit to repair later on. The fun. Okay, that's the parts for the sides and tops and bottoms of the cabinets cut now. They're all to the right length, which is a relief to put it mildly. It looks as though the blade has been set to slightly over 45 degrees, and the reason I know that is because the inside edge of the miter is touching whereas the outside edge isn't. Now I could try and recut these on the table saw, but nah, I don't think I could manage it and not mess it up. So what I'm going to do is get a flat surface, attach some sandpaper to it, and then I'll sand them by hand. What you actually want in a 45-degree joint is to have it slightly less than 45 degrees, such that when the two parts go together, the outside edge actually touches but the inside edge doesn't. So that looks something along the lines of this. That basically means that the outside edges come together really tightly, and there's a slight gap at the back which allows the glue to then run out of the back and gives you a perfectly flush joint. Anyway, live and learn. So that's all the parts successfully cut now. The front and back pieces I've made out of a couple of the offcuts from the initial 6 boards, so that's why I ended up using 2 less boards than I intended. The reason why I've got the sides taped up like this is so that when I actually put the glue in and assemble the cabinet, I'll then see if the joint is actually opening up or not, and I'll be able to fix it at that point. The reasoning for having tape around the back and along the edges is so that when I'm gluing it all together, it then means that the glue is basically going onto the tape and not staining the bamboo. Well, that's the intention anyway. So basically now it's just put some glue in and see how well they fit together. Okay, time for glue up, but I'm not going to bore you too much with this, so I'm going to speed it up. Basically, get all the glue on between the miters, the sides, and the edges of the back panel, and put the back panel in to begin with, and then wrap the sides up and around it. So that will then hold that in position and also square the cabinet up. I then go on to clean up glue squeeze out, but then have a problem when I'm wiping away the glue and realise that I've got it damp and the tape won't stick, so I've had to put some extra tape on. The only thing I would find that would stick to the bamboo is I think it's Rhino Ultra tape, and again it would only stick once. I tried ordinary tape and masking tape, just didn't work. And finally on this, once it's finished, I'm going to wipe all the glue off the back, and I'll then put the cabinet down onto a flat surface with the back at the bottom, and that way I can then push it in down the way to make sure it's flush with everything else. And that's a glue up. Very exciting. So all glued together, some extra tape to pull the joints closer together, and I'll leave it for a day now to dry. Okay, that's the glue dry. Now on to fixing the cut that I made by mistake. So I'll cut a little sliver out, and once I can actually get it located, that's it. So that'll fit in there and should hopefully look quite good. This will be the bottom of the cabinet, so you won't see it anyway. Next is some internal bracing, which consists of two mitered frames, one for the back and one for the front, and then in between just a butt joint are some bits which goes into the corners. Like that. So much better than having to watch me glue it up. Right, now cutting out the rough holes for the treble driver and the bass driver. I was told to call them drivers, not drive units. I'll just go through this quickly because it's quite boring. Okay, next step is to actually make the roughly cut holes nice and smooth. So got a bit of laminate flooring, cut a couple of holes in it to the right size, and I'll now use the router to go around the roughly cut holes and smooth them out. Again, I'm going to speed this up. Okay, treble and bass driver holes all lovely and smoothed off. A couple of extra lugs, holes, cut to each side of the treble driver hole due to the fact of the big solder terminals sticking out on either side of the treble driver. Now I'm going to be drilling the holes for the mounting points of the drivers, and what I'll do is I'll just drop each driver into the hole and use that as a template of where to drill. And again, sped up. Next step is to countersink from the back the holes I've just drilled for the thumb screws that I'm going to be inserting. This is instead of using like normal wood inserts because they're very close to the edge. So making some relief cuts now on the rear panel where the bass driver fits in. This is so that there's more air gap around the rear of the bass driver. Uh, Basically, my friend's an audio expert. We both actually worked for quite a few audio companies over the years, so I'm following his instructions, and it does look quite good as well. So on to cutting the insert, grill, baffle insert, whatever you want to call it, out of the very front baffle panel. I was going to make these out of another separate piece of wood, and I thought it's just wasting wood, why do that? So basically what I'm doing here is cutting them out roughly. I can then sand them down in size and add some strips of wood back on to bring them back up to the right size. Okay, so this is how the front of the speaker goes together. The back plate holds the driver units. The front plate will form a surround together with the insert, which will be covered in felt or speaker cloth. Coming together. Okay, so it's a little jig I've made up here now to route out the front panel to the right shape. All went great up and until the point where the router caught the grain of the wood and ripped it out. So hopefully I should be able to fix this. So the front inserts, these have got to have recesses cut in the back for the treble and bass drivers, and on the front there needs to be a conical section cut again for the treble and bass drivers to go from the outside level down onto the actual driver itself. So the only way I could think of doing this easily was on the wood lathe. So I made a quick jig up which allowed me to mount both pieces at the same time to ensure that the lathe was balanced when it was running. So I haven't recorded everything here, but again I'll let you see it, the result in a little while. So that's the outside edges of the recesses at the back cut and also the cones cut. Now all I've got to do is route out the rest of the recess at the back, and that should hopefully join up with the cone at the front. So after all that work, this is how the insert has turned out. Quite happy with that. Still to do the second one obviously. Okay, so that's the front parts of the baffle glued together now. Give me a second, I'll get all these clamps off. And let's have a wee look. Yep, that's looking quite good. And I think we'll have a wee dry fit of the drivers. So in with the treble first of all. And these screws out the way at the moment. And back in. So the bass driver actually sits on top of the treble driver. So for that I need to have a spacer ring in. And it goes. It's just made out of some thin MDF. And then the bass driver, that's looking quite good. And finally the insert, where is it? Oh aye, here it is. That's looking quite good. And there you go. Yep, it's turning out not bad. Drill it, mess it up, fill it and re-drill. Sorted. So the inside of the cabinet has now had some carpet tiles and some kind of rubberized gloop added to it. That's for some sound dampening on the inside of the cabinet. The rear thumb screws, again using the rubber glue, or sorry, goop, have been glued in, so they're all perfect. And I'm basically ready now to attach the two bits together. Okay, so the last step now is to finish off the edges of the front of the speaker, and basically I'll be cutting some slopes on these. So the blue tape marks out where the slope's going to be cut. Basically bottom left are all of the corners and then across the top edge. And as you can see, I'm using a combination of my wood lathe with a disc sander attached to it and also a belt sander. It was a bit tricky, but it's turned out quite good. And there you have it, a couple of custom made bamboo speaker cabinets out of chopping boards. My friend is going to be finishing off with Osmo hard wax oil. He's also going to be covering the inserts with black felt. I think initially he's going to leave the drivers on display, but may at some point cover them with a speaker fabric. Overall, they look fantastic. I'm really happy with certain aspects. Other bits I've made a mess of them. Basically, the kind of coffin shape, the actual jig I made up is not symmetrical, so the left and right hand edges don't match up with each other. So that leads to inconsistencies in the positioning of the conical section for the base driver. At the end of the day, you're not going to notice it, and especially when it's covered in black felt, it'll become even less noticeable. It's just I know it's there and I'm not happy with it, but friend's happy, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Next time I'll make them better. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope I didn't bore you too much.